Good morning, everyone. I'm glad that you're here. Welcome. Thank you. We're sorry about the snow. Can we blame you for that as well? All right, so it's his fault. He did it. Talk to him afterwards. I'm glad that you're here. Thanks for being pliable. Thanks for adapting to the regulations that change rapidly. We know that is not always comfortable. But boy, I'm glad to be here today, and I hope that you are too. We have got some exciting things that are happening, and before I tell you about them, I have to do the announcements. Here's one that's really important to me, and I'm glad to share this with you. You'll notice that my wife is here. She came back, the tests came back, she did not have COVID, and so she was able to come out of the valley of the lepers and join with the general population again, so welcome. I'm glad that you're here. Yeah, we were excited about that. And for those of you who know my youngest child and how huggy she is, it was kind of a hard couple days there when she couldn't quite get to mom. So we're glad about that. For those of you watching at home, boy, you're welcome. We welcome you here, and we are glad that you are here. You're going to see that there is a slide for giving up right now, and for those of you watching later on in the week, these are the different options we have for giving. For those of you in the room here, you'll need to use one of these options. Of course, the point of sale machine is in the back. There's offering plates available, and we want to encourage you to enter into this level of spiritual maturity and enter into this level of trust of Jesus and God, and let him be God of money, God of your money, God of his money that he's given to us. Today is a very special day for this church, and it's a day that's been about a year in the making. We have with us the Ulriksens family, and if I can get you to stand. Tara just looked at me with eyes that said, I don't like being singled out, which is unfortunate because you're about to come up on stage in just a few moments with a camera and a microphone. But we promise no one will look. We don't promise that. Your family is here, and can I get you guys to introduce your kids nice and loud so that everyone can hear? Hey, we are awful glad to have you guys here. So you can have a seat, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to invite Cheryl Glass over here, kids ministry. If you can follow Cheryl right out this door, anyone who wants to go, you are welcome to go, including you, Ben. You're welcome to go. Here's what's really cool about this. We're having a second service after this, and so they're going to have opportunity, the Glass family will have opportunity to be part of a service on this ongoing, the way that we're doing this. So I think that's exciting. All right. Chris and Tara, can I invite you to come up here? Chris and Tara are missionaries in Mexico City, and they're home on, come on up here, I'll let you grab your mic. Yeah, you can grab that one. Pen and the mic. And Tara, we have a mic for you over there. We are supposed to stay 2 meters apart, so I need you to head over that way because we also have to stay in camera. Chris and Tara are missionaries in Mexico City, and your faces will be familiar to most. You've seen them up on the screen, and you preached here, it was more than a year ago now. And that is a window into some of the complexities that are going on in your life, and so we hope to hear a little bit about that. But today, what we're excited to do is, as a church, we are intending to sign a seamless link with both of you. And a seamless link, for those of you who don't know, I'll give you a quick history lesson on the Christian and Missionary Alliance, which is the denomination that this church is part of. But it was started back with a guy named A.B. Simpson more than 100 years ago. It was started not to be a denomination, but rather to be a melting pot of a whole bunch of different denominations that would all be focused on sending people to least reached people groups. And as time went on and as different things changed, it sort of became its own denomination. But the focus is on missions, and missions primarily, and sending people. And so some of your offering goes to missions every month, and and so we're eager to bring missionaries to the stage or to the screen, however that looks, and for missionaries to be very much part of our family. I was called by the head of missions in this district more than a year ago, saying, would you as a church consider having Chris and Tara Ulriksen and having a seamless link with them? And we said we would love to do that. A seamless link, I'm going to read it at the end of the service. I'll read it so that people will understand what it is. But it is a relationship that is intentional. It is a relationship that is meaningful, and it is specific. This is what the relationship is going to be. And it's going to be support in a number of different ways. But it's also a relationship where we call something from you, and we ask and we require something of you. And one of the things that we require from you is that you open your hearts and that you love this church and the people in this church, and that you know the people in this church.
I thought you were going to ask for our firstborn.
Your firstborn? Right, we haven't signed it yet. That'll happen in a minute. But that you know what's happening in this church. And so our commitment, and we'll go through this, our commitment is that we will both ask you what's going on, but that you will in turn ask us, and that we commit to pray for each other and to love each other. And so at the end of the service, we'll go through that. You guys will get to see that. The second service, we will refer to it, but you're special. You get to see it. And so give yourself a round of applause for being special. I put out a thing earlier this week saying, what questions would you like missionaries, would we like you to answer? And we got so many answers back that there's no way, so many questions back, there's no way we're going to get through them all. And so I was sitting with you last night and I said, let's set this up where one of you will answer one and then the other one will answer the other one. You were both agreeable to this. And so I thought I would start with Tara. And so the first question is, explain God and how he works exactly.
That's more hidden.
I'm just kidding. I'm playing with you. That's a trick question. There are some questions in here that are questions that are deep and probing and personal questions. There's also questions that probably won't feel like that, and they're meant for fun, but God created fun, and he created seriousness, and we are a church that love both. And so the first question, let's start this off. We'll get you in the shallow end before we dive into the deep end. Tara, what's your least favorite Mexican food?
Well, the ones I don't like, I don't eat. So
That's...
like grasshoppers and mondongo, and which is cow stomach, and things like that.
All right. Now, if you got that one wrong, Blanca was going to come run up here, and she and I were talking, and she wondered about menudo.
Menudo is very similar to mondongo. Do you like it? Okay, good.
That's it. Blanca, what's your least favorite Canadian food? Pickles.
Yes.
Yeah, pickles are hard to get in Mexico. I learned this.
Yeah, I got a big bowl of mondongo one time, and it was like the Mary Poppins bowl, where no matter how much you ate, it was still full, and it was just like I gave up. I could not finish it, no matter how hard I tried. It was special.
You guys are welcome to take off your masks if we stay 2 meters apart. And
Thank you.
This is welcome to Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Yeah, this is how it works here.
We're allowed that in Alberta as well, but I
Yeah.
sent you a text and you didn't respond.
Well, I was angry at you, so I decided not to talk. I'm curious about spiritual health, and you guys are in an interesting place where, well, there's a lot of complexities to spiritual health. Chris, can you talk to me? How do you stay spiritually healthy?
You just basically look at it as a multifaceted thing. And so, of course, you want to read the Bible and pray, but all of us know that sometimes reading the Bible and praying gets kind of dry or tiring. And so it's just a multifaceted thing. So, yes, we go to church. We've got different people that we connect with, both individually and together, that we will talk over life with, we'll talk over spiritual matters with. And so the camping trip that we go on, things will come up and we'll talk to different people, or I'll talk to Pete, or another friend, Dan and Jenica Van Essen, or some other missionaries, teammates of ours who are really good friends with, and so we'll go out regularly with them, either together or me with Dan, her with Jenica, and just spend time talking about life and talking about faith. And so it's just, there's so many different ways. I'm a big believer of spiritual pathways, or is that what it's called? Yeah, by Gary Thomas, I think it is, where he just looks at how did God create you, and then how do you incorporate that into your spiritual walk. So for me, I fall into the category he calls the intellectual, so I love reading theological books and whatnot. So I'm just very intentional about doing that, about saying this is part of how I feel close to God and draw closer to God. So I build that into my life, where I'm constantly reading spiritual theological books, because that helps me. They help Tara too, but only to fall asleep. So she doesn't do that. And so it's been a long journey, and we're just continually focused on saying, who did God make us to be? Who are the people that God has surrounded us with, and how do we walk this journey together and deal with whatever comes up? So it's a lot of many different practices that we put together and find out what is meaningful and significant to us and really helps us on our path, and then we just make sure we do that. So
you notice it when you don't?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When you go a stretch without having done it, or you definitely start to notice it.
Me too.
So
Tara, Chris just talked about the different ways that we are made, and so the question is, what giftings has God given you that have been useful in missions? This is the one I wasn't supposed to ask her. Is that what you're snickering about? Okay.
No, it can be a loaded question. For me, my strongest giftings are helps and service.
Okay.
And they can seem like the same thing, but one is specifically for freeing others up to do their ministry. And God has used that in huge ways. And are we going to get to where we're going?
Take us. Let's
okay.
lead us. Yep.
So for me, that means member care on our team, and for looking at how can we develop member care for the nationals in Mexico, and how can they be healthy spiritually, mentally, and physically, and have balance in their lives.
One of the questions is, what is the next role in Mexico? And I know that's like the first question I asked Tara. But can you tell us a bit about that, Tara?
So we don't have a clear direction yet. We're still praying on that, but some of the strings we're pulling and dreams that we're looking at is the member care piece. And for me, for Chris, it'll be teaching. That's one of his passions. And just giving some theological training to a lot of our pastors in Mexico. A lot of them are bivocational, and they have so much passion, and we can learn so much from them, but they lack the theological training piece. And student ministry is another area that Chris is looking at as well. So those are some of the areas that we are praying about and asking God about.
Yeah. And by student ministries, we're looking at like university up age, not necessarily high school, more the university age student ministry. Place where hopefully you can reach people as they're shaping their career and their life, and potentially some new leaders, some young people coming into the church to help out in the church in that way. But Mexico City is such a huge place. There's pretty much 1 million students in that college, university type age throughout different campuses. Not, of course, that I'm planning to reach all 1 million, but there's obviously a lot of opportunity within that. And so those are different things that we are looking at. We're actively involved with our team leaders to discuss that and praying into that right now and figuring all of that out. One of the blessings, one of the challenges, I guess, of Mexico City is that they're sort of in the latter stages of developing as a national church. And so they do have some really good leadership there within the Mexican National Church, and they've got a lot of churches that are going well, a good number of pastors, and so we're sort of in the later stages of missions work in a lot of ways in Mexico City. And so these are a couple of pieces that we look at. One is helping them to develop that leadership training model so that they are able to continually train and develop new leaders. And another one is just as they begin to look to missions and as they begin to send missionaries, which is something that they're actively pursuing and working on, then we can come alongside of them and help them say, here's how you can do this in a healthy way. And that's where Tara's looking at some of the member care stuff. Of course, we want them to trust in God and go to God first, and that God will supply everything. But our first year overseas was in Costa Rica. Well, first 2 years as it ended up, but at a language school, got to know many other missionaries from many different agencies, and a lot of agencies do not have member care. And so if problems come up, you either figure it out, it's sink or swim. You either figure it out and work through it, or you don't. And we've got a number of friends who are with us in missionary training, and it's only been, or in language training, and it's only been 4 or 5 years since we finished, and half of them are back in Canada or the United States because they didn't have any support, they didn't have any help. And it's just not a healthy way of doing it. We're fortunate to be working with the Christian and Missionary Alliance. They've put that as a priority, and so when we're going through difficult times, they do a pretty good job of helping us out so that we can continue as missionaries long term. And so we'd like to be able to encourage the Mexican church to take that on, and we think that would just be beneficial and helpful. So,
something I was very impressed with. About 3 years ago, I came to visit you. Once we got home from visiting you, we literally moved here immediately afterwards. So there's the timeline. And we came to see you, and you took us to your church, which it's called the Ministry Center. And boy, Mexico City is just different than Kindersley in maybe every way. Our student ministry isn't. Are we at 1 million people yet? Not quite. That's maybe this week, but it's very different. And so I know what a church looks like. I've been to many churches. I mean, you know, lots of them. I've been to churches with steeples, and I've also been in churches that meet in gymnasiums. This was a tall building that there was a gate, and it was just like all of the rest of them. And then the gate opened, and there were cars in what turned out to be the garage. And then you pull the cars out and you put up chairs, and this is the sanctuary.
Yep.
Up a level, we start getting into a big kitchen and some areas that are homes, and there's storerooms and that kind of stuff. Go up another level, and it's
first floor was offices, mainly offices, meeting rooms. Second floor was living areas with a big kitchen. Yeah.
And so when people
third floor,
when people came through the Alliance to Mexico City, this is one of the places.
Guest house.
This is the guest house where they would. And so you never knew, or didn't have a lot of heads up, who was going to be there. And that was interesting to me. And I thought, this is the literal launching pad after the airport. This is where people come.
Yep.
Talk
where
to
we
me.
lived for 6 weeks.
They lived for 6 weeks. So talk to me about the challenges of that, because it's just different than how this church operates.
Well, the last question was me, but you.
One of the big challenges of Mexico City in general is finding spaces to meet for churches. And that's always been one of the big challenges. One of our churches meets in a school auditorium. The church that we sort of ended up pastoring, C3, was just in basically the basement, lower parking area of this building. And it's worked fairly well. You can get 120, 150 people in there if you really need to pack it in. Not during COVID, of course, but you know, you could.
Those guys got to like each other.
And so, and various other groups will rent it out. Other churches will rent that space out and hold meetings and different stuff there. And so it was a blessing, but that's a huge challenge in Mexico City, because once you outgrow that space, what do you do? you've got nowhere else to go. You know, and the rent, even looking at places, is insane. The amount of rent to try to rent a place just for Sunday morning, and then you would only have it for Sunday morning. You wouldn't have it for the rest of the week or any storage or anything else like that. Another one of our churches meets in the upper room of a dance hall. And so they've got a little room where they can store their stuff there, and the whole auditorium is surrounded in mirrors because it's a dance studio. And so you get to stand there and watch yourself worshiping God because you've got mirrors everywhere. And so that's one of the huge challenges of Mexico City, is like, even if you grow your church, what do you do to reproduce? How do you start a new church? How do you find a place where you can actually afford to rent a place and start a new church? And so that's been one of the big challenges of Mexico City and of trying to build and plant churches there, is it's like, where do? You can't just buy land and build a church. It's just not an option. Like, you're talking millions of dollars if you're wanting to do something like that, or, you know, this, an amount that is so significant that it's just impossible. Yeah. So that's a huge part. The ministry center and having people in and out, that's kind of fun, because there's always new people around, and you get to see people down visiting in different groups. So
raise your hand if that sentence just gave you hives. There's a few of you.
It's actually been our hub for, what's
Envision.
For Envision. If you've heard Envision Canada and the short-term missions trips to Mexico, that's been our center where all the teens stay.
Yeah. Another thing that I saw a little bit, but we've talked about it a bunch, and something that I found impressive, but the challenges are obvious, is while you were there, you were effectively training people to take your job. I'm going to stop just short of that here, but I saw what you were doing, and that was a complex thing. Tell me about who is leading the ministry center at this point and how that looks.
Ministry center or the church?
I'm sorry, the church.
Okay.
So before, the church was actually started by a missionary couple and a national Mexican couple, and just after we got there, or after we'd been there a bit, the missionary couple came home on home assignment, and the national Mexican couple, because they were bivocational, they were burnt out. And again, that's where we saw that there wasn't that balance, and so they stepped back, and we ended up stepping into that lead pastor role for a time. Before we left, the national couple was able to come back, and God had really been speaking into his life in particular, and saying that ministry comes first and his job as a lawyer came second. And so we were able to hand that over to them, and actually, as a church, missionary church plant, by the end of our first term there, we were able to hand that church over to the national church, which was a significant thing.
So yeah, you're always training, and there are bumps along the way. We had one couple that seemed to be good for moving towards a pastoral role, and we started working with them, and then all of a sudden all sorts of stuff came out, and had to step them back from that position. So it's a constant challenge, but that's working with people anywhere, right? You know, you make steps and then you step backwards sometimes, and you have to be brought back in line, as it were. Or that sounds bad. You have to be,
So then how do you tell the difference between a closed door and an obstacle?
Questions from the floor.
Are we taking questions from the floor? Right after you answer this one.
Okay.
So how do you tell the difference between a closed door and an obstacle?
We were talking about this. That's an interesting question. And I think for me, the word that popped to mind was peace. And we tried for a year and a half to get visas into Venezuela. And so was that an obstacle or a closed door? And until the very end of that time, we would have said it was an obstacle. And because we really felt, and our prayer team felt like we were still supposed to be heading towards Venezuela. But as the economy tanked and the government tanked in Venezuela, it became very obvious that the situation there was not livable to bring a new family of 6 into that. And so it became a closed door, and we all of a sudden were turned towards Mexico City. But there was peace in that. Was it easy? Absolutely not. There's still emotionally, it was relatively easy to pack our family and move them to Mexico City, but
Sure.
Mentally, emotionally,
Easy.
spiritually,
I've done it twice.
it wasn't an easy shift to make, but I wouldn't say that there wasn't peace in that. There was still God answering prayers and providing schooling for the kids and providing a house for us that was far bigger than we imagined that we could have in Mexico City. And so God just provided along the way that was more that confirmation of opening doors for us in Mexico City. So I think that would be the difference for me. I don't know if Chris would say something different, but
I think of a lot of it, there's one element that is just time. Sometimes it just takes time to figure out, is this an obstacle that we need to go over, or is this something that is the door being closed? But along with that, more even than time, is just that ability to discern. And often that takes time. And so in this particular case, we'd go to hand in our paperwork. They wouldn't accept our paperwork. So, okay, that's an obstacle. Does it mean God is closing the door? From the beginning, I at least was asking that question, but I wasn't sure. And it just took time and talking with people around us and our leadership and praying about it and just continuing to come to God and ask, what are we doing? What is the next step? What is the next step we take? And eventually we came to the conclusion that as a group that yes, that door is closed. But it took pretty much a year, if not a little bit more than a year, before we had that. And so some obstacles, of course, you get over right away. Other things you recognize right away are a closed door or whatever it is. But it's always that asking God, that discerning, that trying to figure it out. And God doesn't always lead us really clearly and directly. Many of us have planes flying over, writing in the sky what the answer to our problem is or whatever it might be.
that'd be nice sometimes.
It would be nice, of course. We would all love that. But yeah, to differentiate between an obstacle and a closed door just takes time, a lot of prayer, and working together with others to discern what God is saying. And sometimes what seems like just an obstacle, suddenly you realize, nope, that's a closed door. Does that mean we weren't listening well earlier? Maybe, but I'm pretty sure that God has a lot of grace when we're trying our best, and He's not too panicked about that.
Yeah. Time is short, guys,
Yep.
and there's many more. Here's a question just open for both of you to answer. So the idea, it's going to happen. You guys are heading back to Mexico, but there are all sorts of obstacles there. And can you just take us down the list? This list is going to provide us both how to pray, but also we want just to know what's in your heart and what are the things that sort of stress you out and keep you up at night. But besides having teenage boys and
So I'd say storage for our stuff in Canada was a big item, but God has supplied for that with churches coming together and buying us a sea can. One of the next big thing I think that would potentially keep us up at night is schooling for our boys. We've applied to a new school, which is I was explaining to Mandy last night that it's a far more in-depth of a process than it is here in Canada. So we still have some hoops to jump through in getting them into this new school. So prayer for that, and it's a school that God definitely has to open financial doors for our kids to go there in the way of scholarships from the school. But that would be our big one. Of course, our big one is always making sure that the boys have what they need. And and can be settled and have friends and all that kind of stuff. That's family is a big thing. God's direction in where he's leading us in ministries would be another thing that can potentially keep us awake at night. And then there's all the smaller details of where are we going to live. We initially kept our house in Mexico, but with COVID, we had to give up our house, and teammates packed up all of our stuff and put it into storage for us. So where are we going to live? We're going to be homeless for 2 weeks while we're here in Canada. We have to be out of our place by the end of June. So yeah, just all that organizational kind of stuff I think, goes down the list. For me, anyways, I'm the organizer in our family.
Yeah, I would say that covers most of the stuff that concerns us, or that sort of sits in the back of our mind. There's occasional stuff where you see COVID numbers flare, and the government's bringing different things, so there's always a little bit of some little part of you that goes, well, we're giving up our house at the end of June. We've already agreed to that. And we're planning to leave July 12th, but what if something comes down? But we don't really anticipate that will be a problem. There seem to be ways to get to Mexico. Mexico doesn't have any problems with us coming in. It would just be a matter of finding flights. And so that might be a little more awkward, but I don't think that there's anything that would actually stop us from going. It would just be whether we have direct flights or 2 or 3 stop flights, which we've got a dog, so that gets a little more complicated. So that would be the only other one that jumps to my mind.
Immunizations would
It'd be nice to have that taken care of before we go.
We really could keep going here, and I would love to, but we can't. We'll have a second service, so we'll go some other questions, and that we're going to record that as well, and so you'll have access to that later on during the week, and I would invite you very much to watch that, and there are a few more questions. But I would like now to transition over to the seamless link, and I know we were supposed to ask questions from the floor, but we're going to move away from that and hopefully notable.
We'll be around afterwards, so.
Yeah. All right. Seamless link agreement. This is sort of the contract, and the contract is broken into 4 different levels. And I'm going to read this. You've seen it before, but we'll refresh it for you. But for those of you who haven't seen one before, this is what Kindersley Alliance Church commits to. And so the first section of it is under the category of prayer, and it reads as this. Kindersley Alliance Church commits to regularly pray for Chris and Tara Ulriksens and their family and the ministry in Mexico. We at Kindersley Alliance Church commit to pray for Chris and Tara and the Sun region, which is the region that Mexico is in our church meetings and during specific Sunday services, meaning you guys are going to be here with us, not necessarily in person, but on video, some such thing. We will see you, and we commit to that.
Just one small note there. The Sun region used to include Venezuela. We were going to go Cuba, like all of that Caribbean area. It's down to pretty much Mexico City right now. We've moved out of those other areas for different reasons. So when it says Sun region, that's pretty much just Mexico now. Used to be broader, isn't.
We will promote specific prayers for Chris and Tara Ulriksens amongst individuals, families, and small groups. We're going to communicate your stuff to people who will pray for you. Chris and Tara, in turn, commit to pray for Kindersley Alliance Church and its leadership. Chris and Tara commit to pray regularly for Kindersley Alliance Church and its ministry needs as they are communicated, meaning we need to communicate with you more than just how are you guys doing, but rather specific, this is information you need.
And we are getting prayer updates and stuff.
Yep. Kindersley Alliance Church will pray that the Lord of the harvest will raise up an international worker to go from Kindersley Alliance Church to go out with the Christian and Missionary Alliance.
No, you guys can pray. I'm just going to get a dart and throw it out. Whoever it hits, you got to go.
Yeah. The next part has to do with finances. It's funding. Kindersley Alliance Church commits by faith to to support Chris and Tara by continuing to give to the Global Advance Fund for their term. We give to this. We are going to continue to give to this. This is something that what we would love to be able to do is we would love to be able to say that plus also this other arrangement. Financially, we're not able to do that at this point, but that's what we would love to do, and so looking forward. Kindersley Alliance Church commits to contribute financially to a work special once Chris and Tara have established such a project. If you're doing something in Mexico and you're saying if we had this little bit of capital, we would be able to do so much more. That's part of what we need to know. That's part of what we want to know, and we want to participate however we can. Additional financial support will be given through a special offering when Chris and Tara visit the church to bring personal updates. That means you have to come visit. And
Okay.
You're going to sign the contract here, so you don't even have a choice on that one. Communication. This is the third part of the commitment. Monthly emails or other communications such as Zoom or FaceTime. It ain't going to be email. Such as Zoom or FaceTime with personal ministry and prayer updates will be exchanged between Kindersley Alliance Church and Chris and Tara.
We do our best to send out monthly or at most every second month updates. Some of you might be on that list and have probably been getting them already.
How do they get on that list?
You can talk to us after the service and we just need your name, or you can even send it to us through Pete, but just need your name and your email address, and then they would be sent directly to you.
Kindersley Alliance Church, pastor and elders will share these ministry updates with the congregation upon receiving them. Chris and Tara will conduct a video link or Zoom session with Kindersley Alliance Church in a Sunday morning service at least once every 4 months, unless it's unfeasible to do so.
Yes. Well,
Kindersley Alliance Church will faithfully remind its constituents about God's heart for the nations. We're going to talk about missions. We're wondering where that dart is going to land. Once upon a time, it landed on YouTube.
Yep.
And so we're looking for that. Kindersley Alliance Church commits to regularly teach on the biblical basis of God's heart for the nations. Here's the interesting thing. If you preach the Bible at all, you're going to land on that a lot.
It comes up.
Yeah, I think God cares. Now here's the section number 4, and this is visit. Chris and Tara will visit and share in person with Kindersley Alliance Church during any home assignments for the duration of this agreement and any extensions to it. This agreement is for your term, and terms tend to be 4 years. Stuff's topsy-turvy right now, but that tends to be what it is, and that's sort of what we expect.
We don't tend to be able to stay in the place that we are supposed to for the required length of time.
You're batting zero thus far. But
Yes, we have never yet gone where we're supposed to go at the proper time. So.
I'll get you a GPS. You'll be fine. Okay, on site, Kindersley Alliance Church will commit to sending pastor and or representative from the church to visit the ministry site, encouraging Chris and Tara, strengthening the relationship, and learning about the ministry. Listen, I went all the way to Calgary to see some people I love. Drove all the way there. Drove all the way back. This is how we treat people that we love. We want to come. We want to see. There's a challenge that's involved in that, so it's a challenge. And challenges are good, and we're going to meet that challenge. This will serve to strengthen the relationship and learn about the ministry. Those representatives will bring a report to the congregation upon their return. What's really cool about this is we can shoot video like crazy, and we can show people what your world is. So that is what the Seamless Link is, and this is what we've been putting this together for a year. We should have signed this a year ago. You know what this last year has been. We're signing it today. So I want to invite Doug Clausen. Doug Clausen is our board chair. And if I can get you to come forward. Myron and Dwayne, can I get you guys to come and just stand here? We're going to sign this together. And when we're done signing this, actually, Cole, can you come up and just the final song? We're running out of time. And it's because they went long.
Yes, it's all our
fault. Nothing I can do. Can you come
It's normal for missionaries.
We just sent your dad running. She's got to do sound. Can you play us through the last song while we sign this? And then we'll join together and we'll sing. I want invite you to just turn towards the Ulriksens family. Let's join together in prayer for them. If you feel comfortable doing so, raise your hands out towards them. If not, that's fine too. Lord God, we thank you for the calling that you have laid on the lives of the Ulriksens, not just mom and dad, but also the boys. We thank you for their willingness to respond. We thank you for their graciousness to not become frustrated and stop. When obstacles get in their way, when whole countries, whole areas get shut down. When the plan, which was the plan, stops being the plan. Holy Spirit, we ask that you come and you fill these people. We ask that many will hear the truth of who you are. Directly through the Ulriksens family, indirectly through the Ulriksens family. Lord God, we are not picky. We pray that many come. Lord, for the questions that the Ulriksens ask, the things that keep them up late at night, the things that mom and dad think when they look at their sons, would you provide the best answers? We thank you for the answers already provided. We know that that sea can is far more than just a big metal box, but it is a direct result of your provision. For a school, and a good one, and one that the paperwork doesn't stand in the way, God, that the kids can just get in there and get busy. The life that will be provided around them, and the people who so desperately need to hear the truth of who you are, provide this, Lord. And provide for all of the things that we have never thought of. Be in the details. Show us where you are active. There is no question that you are. Show us your fingerprints. And thank you that this family has chosen to join with Kindersley Alliance Church, and thank you for a church that is willing to join with these missionaries. Teach us how to love them well. Thank you, Lord God. In your name I pray. Amen. Go for it, Brian. You can start. This is the first Sunday where we have two services. I have to give you some direction on how we're going to do this. Thank you for coming. We love that you're here. I'm now going to ask that you reasonably quickly, you don't have to run, but reasonably quickly make your way out so that we can enter into a sanitizing situation here where we have to clean up a bunch of stuff, and then we will have the next service come in. Thank you for coming. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. Make his face shine upon you. Be gracious to you all the days of your life. We'll see you next week.